All right, guys, welcome to part 2. This is how I wanted to talk about the imagery of the tarot with how it relates to this concept of whenever you are under stress, whenever you're under the stress hormone, you are completely out of the state of homeostasis that is natural, that your thoughts can take hold of reality and you can begin to see and implement ideas and strategies and inspirations to be able to really make significantly change in your life. This is what I help to do in my therapy office when I'm in the therapy office. If I'm not doing body work, if I'm not playing with my rocks in the garden, I'm helping people understand that whenever they're under stress in their life, they're almost useless to the effect of changing it, okay? There's no better way to understand the science of the mind than through the imagery of the tarot. We talked about how in the minors with the suits, how the queens embody how we want to approach our thinking, our feeling, our doing, and the resultant state of being. Now I wanted to do this little video here talking with the major cards, talking about the 3 different groups. If you don't know them the way I do, I don't know how people learn the tarot. It's a mystery to me how some people have their particular take of it. It's also a mystery how it almost always seems to work for them beautifully. But how I separate the major cards is you keep the Fool separate, okay? That's a 0. It's a not part of it anyway. It's the ethereal. We're not even going to deal with that whole thing. But with the major cards, we're going to be talking about the victory, the 7s of each line. If you consider that 1 through 7 is one line, that's all about the worldly influences and urges. We're talking from the Magician to the Chariot. It's the Chariot that shows the self-mastery of the world. If we're looking at that top line as being the worldly influences, urges, we're talking about this means that you are in control and that your body and your mind have found the homeostasis so you can be in a really good place to be able to co-create your life with the natural processes that happen that turn thoughts into things anyway. We all know this is the card of willpower and having control of your life. That's why it's card 7. That's why it's the last card of this first line, how I understand how the tarot works. In my other video, we talked about how the 5s are sort of the interrupter of that. They're the ones that create the stress around being the chariot in your life, around the worldly influences and urges. So what card is that? Oh my goodness, it is most for certain the Hierophant. This is the belief systems that you were taught to learn because you haven't gotten to the stage to understand that you're involved in the process anyway. This is where all the wars come from. This is where all interpersonal problems come from because it's conflicting belief systems. My church said this, my schooling said this, my parents taught me this, blah, 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 blah. This is the 5. As we did with the other video, kick it back a little bit. What's the 4th card in the first line? Right now, you got to find the structure and foundation, that there is order, that there are rules to this world, and that gets you through this stage of difficulty. Yes, of course, we want the softness of the Empress in there, obviously, but before we can add the softness to anything, it's like landscaping a beautiful wall. You got to put the hardware in there first. You put the bricks in first. You put the foundation in first. Then you soften the wall with your succulents and the greenery and the vines and the turf and all the nice, beautiful blah, blah, blah that softens it up. In the world, because we're talking about this first line, guys, if you find yourself like that and you're thinking, I am not in control, if your body is not in this wonderful, cozy state of homeostasis where you're thinking, I can do this, man. You got to remember this. There are structures to the world. There are rules to the world. And once you just play by them like anyone can play by them, then you can have control of the world, all right? You can begin to create your own belief system so it works for you, because there's nobody who's lucky in this world. There's nobody who's blessed in this world by some other force outside of what they're naturally doing to just utilize the rules of the universe to be able to seem like they are in control of their world, okay? That's a big belief system that a lot of us fight with, is if you do a certain thing, if you pray a certain way, God will favor you and you'll have a good life. You'll have a happy life, you'll make money, your kids will be safe, all of these things. But whenever you realize that there's a lot of people following those other rules and then their lives aren't working out like that, there is a structure to it. You don't have to call it the law of attraction. You don't have to call it anything. But the natural process of how creating your life so that you see it and you feel it as if you're in charge of it, it's just like gravity. There's a natural process to how thoughts turn into thought forms, and then they show up in your life whenever you are devoid of the stress of all these fives of thinking it should be this way, all right? I'm very fortunate to have a lot of very successful people who come in for clients. Whenever I did body work full-time, massage full-time, I worked on everyone in Hollywood, the most successful of the successful, the most famous of the most famous. If you saw them on the red carpet, I had them on my massage table. And it wasn't ever because they prayed a certain way or because their parents were a certain somebody. They came from all over the place. But after the years of me knowing them and talking to them, becoming friends with them, getting to be involved in their family dynamics over years and years and years, 20 years, you begin to see that all they did was follow the idea, the concept that once they do all the fours that we did in the other video, they remove themselves from all the fives of how they should be doing it, and they just follow their own instinct. We're going to get into that in the second line. That is how they all changed their life. They made it from Pittsburgh to Hollywood. They made it from small towns to the multi-Grammy award-winning artists that I know. And it's just like they all take the four stance, knowing that there is a structure to the world. This is so incredibly important for you to understand too, okay? Let's talk about the second group. We're at 6 minutes. I think we can fire this off under 10 if I don't gaggle too long here. The seventh card, the victory success card of this intrapersonal line, okay? Cards 8 all the way to 14. This is intrapersonal skills. This is you living that balanced life, inside, outside, conscious, subconscious, however you want to look at it, mind, body, whatever you want to do. Doing this beautiful, impossible tour, or pour, as that angel does. The challenge in getting to there, if this is the mastery, if this represents kind of the queens like we did in that other video, the challenge is the fifth card in the second line, and that is this Hanged Man. This is whenever you have to have trust that the wheels are turning from the Wheel of Fortune, okay? It's a solo card. It's interesting now because we begin to see the problem of whenever you're on the intrapersonal journey to self-intra-mastery, not mastery over the world, not over the worldly influences, but over the intrapersonal influences. This is the challenge when it comes to trust, when it comes from sacrificing action to just hanging out, chilling, having patience, and having faith. This is the fifth card. What you want to do to overcome having a problem, just trusting that the Wheel of Fortune is going to bring you by just knowing that you're following the rules of the Emperor, to just be like, this is the stage where we wait. That's whenever you come back and you realize this fantastic justice. This card is almost the most important card in the entire deck. It lies smack dab in the middle of the major arcana. This is the card of self-responsibility. It is justice. It is knowing that you have a part to play in your life. It's dealing with the intrapersonal issues. It's not about the world. It's not about cards 1 through 7. We're not talking about the universal influences and urges with the last line. It's you have to fall back to knowing somehow that you are the wearer of the scales, and that in embodying this, you'll have a much better idea how to hang in there, to use a really poor little pun there, I suppose, to get to this stage through the change, through the death card, to be able to come right there, okay? I don't want to go through all the numbers, but in the intrapersonal second line, man, that's so totally important. Now we get to the special of the special, guys. Cards 15 through 21, or 21 is the seventh card of the universal influences and urges. It's that mystery of how everything comes together. It's the world card, how what real is unreal, what is dynamic becomes non-dynamic, what's dual becomes non-dual. It's this fantastic, mysterious card here of the universal influences and urges, the idea of big cycles and coming to an end, although it doesn't feel like the end, it's an end of a cycle, so on and so forth. The challenge in being able to see the balance and the stress relieving quality of this fantastic world dancer is this is the irony from the universal influences urges, is that there is none. This is the most beautiful message, I think, in the tarot right here, that if you're looking through the universal influences urges to master them, to be able to recognize them, if you want to get here, this is the queen of the last line of the major arcana. This is the goal of the universe, is to be unified as this world character is unified. The challenge, it actually isn't there, because this is the universal influences where absolutely everything is divinely initiated. So no matter what problem you think you have, there isn't a problem. It's really, really interesting. I find that this is the most beautiful aspect of the last line of the major cards. This is the fifth card. This should be the problem, but in the universal world, not your ego view, right? Not what's going to please your ego, what pleases the universe, what pleases, oh God, if you have to use the word God, what pleases the universe is for you to understand that there's even perfection in you wanting to perfect the world further, that there's nothing wrong with it. Every great master said that we're not here to fix anything, and this is why. Any master, Mahatma Gandhi, you name it. If there was a book about them, a movie about them, that they inspired millions of people, this was their take home, that there's nothing wrong with the world, even your willingness and wanting to improve upon it. I think that was a Wayne Dyer thing I threw in there a little bit, okay? Interesting, interesting. And if you wanted to sort of get back and stay to the same theme of if you're having trouble understanding that there is nothing wrong in the universal scope of itself, you can kind of get back to the fourth card of that third line of the major arcana, and this is that moon card. The moon card, I feel, gets a really bad rap. Basically, it's involving fear, getting fear back out into the world, if you have to really put a general term in this, okay? So if you have a hard time dealing with that, there's nothing wrong with the world. It's all going to plan from the view of the universe, from the view of the biggest statement of the divine, all right? Just read one of your favorite master's books, and that's the take home from that. If you need support because your ego can't wrap yourself around the idea that, yeah, but that really bothers me, so there's something wrong with it, you can still go to the fourth card, one prior to that fifth problem, and then look at this card to realize, look, you still are going to have fear. You're still going to have to do whatever you can do. I might actually link my moon description in the description below, okay? So click this moon if you have a problem interpreting the moon. You can have a better idea of at least how I do it, all right? So if you have a hard time understanding the universal view of itself, by saying there is nothing wrong here. We're all just here being a part of this whole. This is homeostasis. This is wonderful creative expression and freeing up of stress hormones so that you can think clearly, feel clearly, and do clearly. Then you can still have the strength of this moon where you still get on the path out from that peace and stillness of the star, okay? I hope this was helpful. It's certainly fun doing these videos. I appreciate you viewing. Check out the link to my moon card. If there's any questions about if you're having trouble with that whole concept, your ego doesn't want you to understand that the universe says, no, there's nothing wrong here, man. We're all playing a part of this big play, all right? Don't worry, things are going to change. The next scene's going to be completely different. The next act gets better, all right? I'll talk to you guys later, guys. Thank you for viewing. Bye.